Game of Thrones was probably the biggest show to come out of the last decade, in terms of both scale, scope, and budget, as well as in audience investment. However, by the time season 8, episode 6 rolled around, it was clear to everybody that the show was already dead before it had even finished. Since then, a lot of YouTubers have thoroughly and carefully pointed out everything that was wrong with that infamous last season. So today, I'm not going to cover that. If you want a detailed account of what went wrong, check Lindsay's video on it. What I'm more interested in today is when did the disaster become inevitable? Or, to put it another way, when did Game of Thrones die? From what I've seen, people answer this question in one of two ways. Most people say it was one of the three dreadful season 8 episodes, namely 3, 4, or 5, each one of them in turn destroying a pillar of the show, with episode 3 killing the story and themes, episode 4 killing the logic and continuity, and episode 5 killing the character's personality and arcs. The more pessimistic lot say the show was already killed by season 7's dreadful episode Beyond the Wall, which many people, myself included, foolishly believed would go down as the worst, stupidest episode in Game of Thrones' history. However, due to all the things that seem to have transpired, I believe that Game of Thrones was already long dead. We just couldn't see it then. In my opinion, Game of Thrones died as early as the 12th of April 2015, with the release of Season 5, Episode 1. Now, you might ask, really? Episode 1? Stannis was still alive and relatively unbotched by that point. Shouldn't it be at least the 9th or 10th episode of that season? And my answer is no, because while it is true that Stannis' story was horrifically botched, it being botched didn't really affect that much in the grand scheme of things, outside season 6. Like if Stannis won Winterfell, and then, when Jon came off the wall, Jon would be named Lord Paramount of the North, followed by Stannis dying either in a grand northern conspiracy or going south, the result would have been more or less the same, with Jon king in the north at the end of season 6. So while Stannis was horrifically botched, it wasn't a cataclysmic screw-up, as the plot and characters ended up in more or less the same place. The scars left at the beginning of season 5 episode 1, however, would mark the show till the end, being responsible either directly or indirectly for most of the things that would plague the last seasons. So what were these cataclysmic decisions? In my opinion, there were two. The less devastating decision on behalf of Tweedledum and Tweedledave was to mix the Jane and Sansa storylines. For those who don't know, in the book, Sansa doesn't marry Ramsay. Instead, Jane Poole, Sansa's childhood friend, is forced to pretend she is Arya and marry Ramsay. Book Sansa is still safe and sound in the Vale and about to marry the heir of the Vale. So why was this change so bad? Well, first off, there are the small shades of stupid, like Littlefinger giving Jon Royce custody of Sweet Robin. I mean, does he want to get deposed in the Vale? But besides the small nitpicks, there are far more serious problems that come from this. The first one is Sansa's wedding with Ramsay, which is one of those things that is just plain awful. However, the bigger problem from this decision comes in season 6 and 7, with the fact that Littlefinger's main area of interest becomes the north. Remember how I said Stannis being defeated doesn't matter that much? Well, here is the one place where it does matter, as in order for the Boltons to lose Winterfell, Littlefinger needs to Deus Ex Machina in order to save Jon and company. In fact, because of Littlefinger's clear interest in helping Sansa and him needing to Deus Ex Machina in order to remain relevant, Stannis becomes irrelevant to the show, resulting in one of the worst moments pre-season 8. The first thing that makes this stupid is how on earth did Littlefinger cross Moat Cailin? Moat Cailin is discussed at length and features prominently in at least one episode as an impassable barrier, but Littlefinger manages to just breeze past it. To further aggravate this, given Littlefinger's tour in the north, he is left without anything to do in season 7, and so the writers, not knowing what to do with him, just nuked his character. All in all, we can see how the simple choice of merging the Sansa and Jane storylines completely messed up Littlefinger, Stannis, and Sansa. For those who don't know, in the book A Dance of Dragons, which roughly corresponds with season 5, we learn about the existence of another Targaryen, Aegon, supported by the Golden Company, presumably the first son of Rhaegar Targaryen, though most people in the fandom believe him to be phony, calling him Fagon, most likely being of a cadet branch of the Targaryens called the Blackfyres. In the books, Fagon is the king Varys secretly supports, and for whom he has worked so long for. In the show, we learn from the very first episode of season 5 that Fagon doesn't exist. The very first victim of this fact is Dorne. In the books, the Dorne storyline is heading towards them supporting Fagon and helping him get crowned king. In the show, as this is impossible, the showrunners are left to somehow make Dorne end up on the same general direction without the main purpose of its original storyline. And the result is, well, this.
And weak men will never rule Dorne again.
Another unfortunate result of this is that Varys is left without anything to do as the show is forced to go with the Varys serves the realm thing, which in the books is clearly proven to be false. And so, the most devious man in the Seven Kingdoms turns into a sidekick devoid of all agency, just waiting to be finally axed off in season 8. Yet another problem is the fact that in the show, Cersei is somehow queen. In the books, Fagon will more than likely become king instead of her, at least for a while. The loyalty of the people and the nobles is more than understandable in this case, as he is both the legitimate ruler and an actually good king. Show Cersei shouldn't have that much power or legitimacy. She committed a terrorist act by blowing up the Great Sept of Baelor, and she has absolutely no claim on the throne. Just because her son was king doesn't mean she has any claim to the throne. All that shows Cersei should be ruling is King's Landing, that is, if she is lucky. However, the biggest problem that comes from there being no Fagon is that Dany's turn to the dark side is completely botched. If Dany were to land in Westeros to find a Mummer's dragon sitting on the Iron Throne, one she does not believe to actually be who he claims he is, it makes sense that the people would hate her when she usurps him, and that the hatred between Dany and the people would escalate, with her becoming more and more of a tyrant, and ultimately sacrificing the people of King's Landing in a trap to kill the White Walkers with wildfire. As is, however, without Fagon to have the love of the people, it makes no sense that the people and the nobles don't rally to Dany, and it makes even less sense that Dany does the thing. As a final screw you, without the Taisha revealed, i.e. that Tyrion's wife actually wasn't a prostitute, and without Tyrion's journey of self-discovery with Fagon and company, his character turns from a dark, fascinating figure into Apple, the whimsical dwarf. To wrap this all out, Season 5 Episode 1, while on the surface not the worst episode ever, planted the seeds to the tree of dumb that would eventually destroy Littlefinger, Sansa, Dany, Cersei, Tyrion, and the entirety of Dorne. The one thing it didn't destroy was Jon. Him they destroyed separately.
She is my queen.
Had Tweedledum and Tweedledee followed the books, or at least their outlines, all this wouldn't have happened. Had they tried to continue the show on their own without considering the books, it still might have worked. Instead, however, they tried to follow the same outline of the books and reach roughly the same destination, despite of them not having a good part of the story, and as such, the result felt rushed, disappointing, and internally inconsistent. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please like and subscribe. I'm also trying to figure out my own style and format, so if you have any ideas, leave them down in the comments. All feedback, be it positive or negative, will be more than welcomed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.